For more than 2 decades, February 18, 2001 has remained one of the most defining days in American motorsports. The 2001 edition of the Daytona 500 at Daytona International Speedway began as a celebration of speed, legacy, and a new broadcasting era. It was the first NASCAR Cup race aired by Fox Broadcasting Company, and expectations were high. The atmosphere was electric, filled with color, sound, and anticipation. Fans saw it as the official start of a new season, a reset filled with possibility. No one inside the grandstands or watching from home imagined that by evening, the narrative of the sport would shift permanently. What began as spectacle would become reflection. At the center of the story stood Dale Earnhardt, already immortalized through 7 championships and a reputation for relentless determination. Earnhardt's presence at Daytona carried weight beyond statistics. He symbolized toughness, control, and competitive instinct. Yet by 2001, his role had expanded. As the leader of Dale Earnhardt, Inc., he was not racing solely for himself. He was guiding an organization, mentoring younger drivers, and building something intended to last beyond his own driving career. That perspective subtly reshaped how he approached the race. Among those drivers were Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Both carried different forms of pressure. Waltrip had yet to secure a Cup Series victory despite years of effort. Earnhardt Jr. bore the weight of a legendary surname and the expectations that followed it. For Earnhardt Sr., their success mattered. Observers later suggested that his mindset that day seemed protective and strategic rather than purely aggressive. In the broadcast booth sat Darrell Waltrip, a former rival turned analyst. His history with Earnhardt stretched back decades, filled with intense on-track battles and occasional controversy. Over time, rivalry matured into respect. By 2001, Waltrip's role was to interpret the race for viewers, balancing technical explanation with emotional awareness. On that afternoon, his responsibilities would test both skills. The race unfolded with the usual Daytona intensity, tight packs, drafting strategy, and calculated risk. As laps decreased, positioning became everything. Earnhardt maintained third place, not aggressively seeking the lead but defending his teammates from advancing challengers. His driving appeared deliberate, almost restrained compared to earlier eras of his career. To seasoned observers, it suggested a driver prioritizing team outcome over personal victory. As the final lap began, Michael Waltrip led with Earnhardt Jr. close behind. Earnhardt Sr. remained in third, forming a protective triangle. From the booth, Darrell Waltrip's emotions were divided. Professionally, he was witnessing a career-defining moment for his brother. Personally, he kept an eye on the familiar black number 3 car. The tension felt unusually intimate, as if the entire field had narrowed to a single storyline. In turn 4, contact occurred between cars battling for position. Such moments were not uncommon in stock car racing. Earnhardt's car turned and struck the outside wall. Simultaneously, Michael Waltrip crossed the finish line, securing his first Cup victory. Darrell Waltrip's voice cracked with joy as he celebrated. Within seconds, however, celebration shifted to concern as cameras focused on the motionless number 3 car. What followed was a silence heavier than engine noise. Viewers sensed uncertainty before official words were spoken. Motorsport often involves dramatic crashes from which drivers emerge unharmed. Earnhardt himself had survived severe impacts in previous seasons, yet the stillness of the car created unease. As medical crews approached, the broadcast tone shifted from excitement to caution. Later that evening, confirmation of Earnhardt's passing stunned the racing world. Beyond grief, his death forced examination of safety protocols within NASCAR. Head and neck injuries had claimed lives in preceding seasons. Although the HANS device had been developed, usage was not yet mandatory. After 2001, that changed. Safety reforms accelerated. The HANS device became required equipment. Track walls incorporated SAFER barrier technology to better absorb impact. Vehicle design improvements emphasized energy management and cockpit protection. These changes represented structural transformation rather than symbolic gestures. The sports culture began shifting toward proactive prevention. For Darrell Waltrip, the emotional complexity of the day remained profound. He had experienced triumph and tragedy within minutes. Years later, he shared that before the race, Earnhardt expressed a simple wish, that he wanted Michael to win. The statement was not dramatic, it was sincere. In hindsight, it reflected Earnhardt's evolving priorities as mentor and team owner. Earnhardt's public persona often centered on intimidation and competitive dominance. Yet those who knew him described a more layered individual, private, loyal, and invested in those around him. His final race revealed that dimension in subtle ways. His positioning on track suggested commitment to others' success. The aftermath reshaped NASCAR's public image. Media scrutiny intensified, and leadership faced pressure to implement change. Conversations about liability, responsibility, and innovation became unavoidable. While reforms were not instantaneous, the direction became clear. Safety would no longer be optional. For fans present that day, memory remains vivid. Many recall exactly where they stood or sat when the race concluded. The duality of celebration and loss created an emotional imprint unique in sports history. That contrast continues to define retrospectives about the 2001 Daytona 500. Earnhardt's statistical achievements remain central to his legacy: 7 championships, 76 Cup wins, and a reputation as one of the most influential drivers in NASCAR history. Yet his final race added another dimension: catalyst for progress. Modern drivers compete in environments fundamentally shaped by reforms implemented after 2001. Younger generations encounter this story through documentaries and archived broadcasts. For them, it represents both heritage and lesson. They see a sport that evolved through adversity and embraced innovation. Earnhardt's impact, therefore, extends beyond victories to institutional transformation. Darrell Waltrip has often spoken about balance, honoring legend without ignoring humanity. His reflections highlight how rivalries can mature into respect and how competition does not exclude empathy. The broadcast booth perspective offered him a vantage point unlike any other participant that day. The 2001 Daytona 500 remains a study in contrasts: triumph and tragedy, tradition and reform, myth and reality. It reminds audiences that even iconic figures are human, navigating pressure, responsibility, and relationships. The event became more than a race, it became a historical inflection point. In examining that day, analysts often focus on broader themes: leadership, risk, innovation, and accountability. Earnhardt's career embodied competitive intensity, but his final race underscored collective responsibility. Progress in motorsports frequently emerges from confronting difficult truths. Ultimately, February 18, 2001, stands as a chapter that reshaped NASCAR's trajectory. It preserved a breakthrough victory, redefined safety standards, and deepened understanding of the people behind the helmets. The legacy is complex but enduring, one that continues to influence how the sport honors its past while protecting its future.